looking at the Congress and the White House. And the military has not been bought. The military is loyal, but it has not been bought. And if it ever understands this, really, really deeply understands this, and this is what I got when I put some of these things to the Army War College and to Headquarters Marine Corps. And I mentioned to a contact at Headquarters Marine Corps, I said, they did 9/11. And it was, you don't mean it. I said, absolutely. And if they ever understand that, these people are history.
Well, now let me ask you something, Doctor. And obviously, I understand that we need to protect the names of the innocent here, and this is probably
there are no innocent.
Okay, I'd like to know a little bit more about this. I mean, these conversations that you're having with your colleagues who are still serving in uniform, what is the reaction on their part when you tell them things like this? First,
a disbelief, and what I show them immediately afterwards is an interview with a Danish demolitions expert named Danny Jowenko, and it shows the third building at the World Trade Center going down, WTC-7.
Right.
And they look at that, and I said, now you understand that if one of the buildings was wired for demolition, all of them were wired for demolition.
Right.
And that's it. That's the tipping point. I mean, getting into arguments about who was flying what and where they were and whether there was nanothermite, those things are true, but they're incidental.
Right.
The thing that's necessary is to tell people 3 buildings went down, the third was not hit by a plane, it was wired for controlled demolition, therefore all of them were wired for controlled demolition, and at that point the reaction is rage. First disbelief and then rage.
Well, I got to tell you, that I find to be very encouraging because, based upon the cursory conversations I have with some military people, and I have to be real careful about what I say because you just don't know what you're walking into when you start a discussion of this type with one of them. Based upon these, as I said, cursory conversations that I've had with some of them, they're clueless and they don't want to hear about it. They are loyal to the flag that is on their left sleeve as a patch, and the thought that the government could be in any way involved in any kind of high crimes and treason against the United States, people of the United States, is just unthinkable to them. So I'm glad to hear that there still is some gray matter and some patriotism left, at least in the circles where you travel, Dr. Sabrowski.
Well, I mean, it's not that they don't want to hear it; it's that they don't know of it. And what I have done when I presented it to these people, and I said, just look at this, just look at this picture. I'm not going to give you an argument; just look at it. And they look at the film, and without exception, they come back and they say, "They did it, didn't they?" I said, "Yep." They did it.
Can I jump in here for a second? I just wanted to mention that talking about military people, some of the most distinguished military people that I've ever had the pleasure to be around is Admiral Thomas Moore, former Joint Chiefs of Staff, which supported us completely, the USS Liberty investigation, and so on and so forth. And then Ray Davis, he was the commandant of the United States Marine Corps, and he directly said that this is of course not going to 911, but he directly said that the USS Liberty was not a mistaken identity. It was a act of cold-blooded, premeditated murder. So there are people out there in the military. And now these guys were retired at the time, but when you're educating people like you're doing, Alan, people that's in the military now, you're exactly right. They just don't know because nobody knows. It's been hid up. Everything's been hid. It's been covered up so good that it's. I mean, it almost take a messiah to get us out of this thing.
Dr. Zabrowski, I wanted to ask you, since we are, to a certain degree, prognosticating today and making predictions, what do you think is going to happen here? I mean, I was having a conversation with someone the other day about this situation with Iran. And the fact of the matter is that irrespective of whether or not Iran is actually actively engaged in building a nuclear weapon or not, the fact of the matter is that Israel cannot afford to have this war not take place. There has to be something that takes place, even if it's just lobbing a couple of bombs into Iran and then really spectacularizing it through their control of the media. They have to do something to recoup some of their public image. So would you agree with me on that? And assuming that you do agree with me on that, what do you think Israel is going to be doing in the near future?
We're going to have a war with Iran, and my guess is that the Arab Street is going to explode.
I agree.
And American forces, American units, like the Fifth Fleet headquarters in Bahrain, the rest of it, there's going to be a casualty list that we're not even going to care to think about.
Alan, I think this thing was predestined from day one. They started in Afghanistan, they go to Iraq, and Iran has been the big prize all along. What do you think?
Yep, no question at all. And in fact, if the Iraqi resistance hadn't been so strong, it would have already happened in the second Bush administration.
Absolutely, I agree 100%.
So all of this reticence, reluctance, whatever you want to call it, what appears to be reticence and reluctance on the part of the Obama administration, what do you think is going on? I mean, look, just this past week, we had some what I consider to be pretty dramatic things being said on the part of the Obama administration with regards to Israel, with the settlements and whatnot. What is this? Is this just posturing on the part of the Obama administration, or are they really trying to pull back on the reins?
The Obama administration hasn't withheld a single dollar, a single plane, nothing. Words are cheap. That's the Israelis made a tactical error in that they insulted Biden, and Biden is not one of my favorite people, but he is a street smart guy, and he doesn't like being humiliated.
Sure.
This is a given, but nothing has happened to affect, in a tangible sense, anything that we're giving to Israel. Nothing. And as long as nothing happens to tangibly affect what we're giving to them, nothing else will matter.
Okay. So why are we not already at war with Iran then? Partly
because we can't find a good enough excuse for it that will allow us to sidestep what we're doing in Afghanistan and to a lesser extent Iraq.
Okay.
It's that there's just a little too much there. I'm pretty sure that the pattern was Afghanistan in 2001, Iraq 2003, Iran 2005, Syria 2007.
Okay.
The problem was that the Iraqi resistance didn't let that happen.
I see.
So now the time frame is a little bit different. And I'm not sure how that's going to play out, but I think that, the way we're going to it is to try and create an excuse for a war. And after the war takes place, people can question it, but it doesn't change the fact of the war.
You're right. If it's anything that we learned from Vietnam, is that once the troops are committed, right or wrong, you stand by the troops. I mean, that's one of the things that I noticed with the first Gulf War, and this is before I knew anything about anything. I thought, boy, when you look at the kind of protests that took place, and I was in college at the time of the first Gulf War, when you look at the kind of protests that took place during Vietnam, and of course on college you had a few people grumbling and saying this and saying that.